I always made things with my hands. I've always been a maker of some sort or another. But when I finished university, I felt I hadn't really experienced much of life yet. I decided to go out west in Canada, and I thought people would be full of conversation. But I ended up in a mining town in northern British Columbia, and people were not full of conversation at all. They just worked very hard, and at the end of the day they drank very hard and they went to bed. And so I thought, I've got to do something else, and so I got a lift into the closest town, which was about 60 miles away, and there was a carousel of books, and I just rotated it, picked out a book on how to weave, made myself a frame and started weaving tapestries. I only lasted 6 months there. I discovered very quickly that I wasn't somebody to commune with nature. I liked cut grass. I was terrified of mountains. You know, mountains look good on postcards or calendars. We have a cottage on a lake in Canada, and a lot of my inspiration has come from that. In fact, it's what I call my bit of paradise. It's halfway between the wildness of the north and the civilization of a city. I mean, it is Quebec outback wilderness. It's a lake that is about 2 by 3 miles with very few cottages on it. From our cottage, we can just look out and not see anyone, and it is so beautiful. And I've got a series of scarves and shawls that I've been working from the autumn colors. Looking at the lake, you know, when you look at something, it's never just one color, and the lake, depending on the time of day, the weather conditions, it changes color, and I'm always trying to make that blue so intensely blue. Color is my thing. I do. It's what keeps me interested in weaving. It's the color interaction. It's always a surprise, even though I teach courses on color, so I know the theory, but there's always that magic moment when you create a third color. You can change a color completely by that, putting something else beside it in a different part of your warp or your weaving. And when you take it off and you look at it, you don't know what the original color is. In fact, I've had things that, you can see the fringe on the warp and it's interacting with the colors in the weft, but the fringe on the warp doesn't look anything like what's happening with the colors as they mix warp and weft. It's like a pointillist painting, like Seurat. He did whole paintings of just dots of color, and when you stand back, those colors mix completely. It's only when you go up to them that you see these separated dots, and that's what weaving in color is. Weaving is 2 sets of threads. One is the warp, the threads that are under tension, and then it's the weft that crosses. And when you're using a loom, each thread has to be threaded individually. So somehow you have to get your pile of threads into some sort of order so that you can wind them on the loom and create this ground framework for your weft to cross. So I have to wind my warps thread by thread, each thread parallel to the next. And I often look at that as painting with threads. I take those threads in order. They're in a chain. It's like a great big cobra of chained up that I'll spread on the back of my loom. I have 2 cats, and sometimes they can cause me problems when I'm winding a warp and they're sitting at the base of the warping mill and seeing the threads go up and around. But most of the time they're all right. But when they were kittens, it was very problematic. I'd put a warp on my loom, my big loom, and I then went away to my lake in Canada for 3 weeks, and my husband was looking after them, and they were tiny kittens at the time, and he didn't see them all the time. But when I came back, I started weaving on this warp on the loom, and I wondered why I had so many broken threads. And I looked and I realized they must have been using it as a trampoline.